Hi everyone, and welcome to part 2 of Changing Careers the Right Way. To review what we did last week, or where we are, just so you can give you the map here on where we've been, where we are, and where we're going to go. Week 1, we talked last night about getting ready for a career change, understanding what a career change is, understanding the different types of career changes, everything from kind of moving slightly along the continuum to something that's slightly different than what you've done now, all the way to, what do we call it, from construction worker to ballerina or vice versa? Those big changes that are nearly impossible to make. All kinds of things in between, the small pivots and the big changes. Maybe what you're thinking about is somewhere halfway down the continuum. Maybe it's all the way, maybe it's just a little move, maybe it's a little baby steps, a little bit at a time. So it doesn't have to happen all at once. And the mindset that you have to be in to make a career change. It's tough. Without a doubt, it is tough. But at the end of the day, if you get closer to something that's going to make you happy, it's going to make you more effective and productive, and in your definition, more successful, it's worth it. The short-term pain, long-term gain. This week, we're going to talk about exploring and planning. How do you really explore your options? How do you make sure that the move you want to make is one that makes sense and is actually possible? And then how do you plan for that move? And the next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about taking action. How do you actually take those steps? As you can see, I call this ready, aim, fire. The problem with most job searches and most career changes is that everybody wants to start with fire. They want to start executing down there at the bottom. And true, that's the stuff that feels more productive. Like, wow, I'm really making progress. It's like, if you've ever been in a job search and you send out 200 resumes, you think, man, one of those is going to hit because I sent out 200 resumes. What you really did in a lot of cases was send out 200 pieces of junk mail. If it wasn't targeted, if it wasn't focused, if it wasn't built on some sort of plan. So when any sort of a job search, career change, career move, or really probably anything in our lives is best done with ready, aim, fire as your framework. So here we are, week 2, aim. I want to remind you of this because this is the pillar, it's the framework, it's the underpinning, it's the guts of everything that we do, is getting very clear on what our career happiness looks like. And as I will remind you a million times, it's different. We have 3 people at this table. Their definition of career happiness looks very different from the person sitting next to them. So the importance of understanding what it looks like for you cannot be overstated. And once you get that down, don't get too comfortable because, as I told you last week, it's going to change. Because something in your life will change. Something in your work situation will change. Your boss will change. The work to do on your desk will change. Something will change. And sometimes it makes it better for you, but a lot of times it changes it to the point that it's not okay anymore. And so what you have to do is understand that, know what your framework is, and then if the ground shifts underneath you and you're no longer career happy, or you're to the point where the unhappy bucket is more full than the happy bucket, you need to be the one to initiate the change. And this is where people start to fall down. They start, well, I'm just going to work harder. It must be me. Everybody else seems happy. If I just put my head down, maybe it'll go away. Maybe this boss will go, and it'll all change. And then, angels will sing, and it'll be all great again. And it generally does not happen that way. You have to be the one to say, what isn't working? Which piece of my model, my personal framework, is out of whack? By doing that, you then know what to change. But what so many people do is, you know what? I hate this job. I don't want to be an accountant anymore. I don't want to work in healthcare anymore. I'm really burnt out on healthcare. Are you really burnt out on healthcare? Or is there some aspect of your job that's not satisfying anymore? Or did you have a boss change? Or has something in your life changed? To just say, I'm unhappy, I want something different, or I'm burnt out, or I just got to get the heck out of here, is generally not a helpful way to jump into a change because you don't know what you're fixing. You don't know what to fix. Chances are you're going to run into something, you're going to go towards something that feels familiar, and sometimes even the crap feels familiar. And so we go toward more crap. It's a technical term, don't try to use it without supervision. So you have to be intentional and purposeful about your moves. And if I had this opportunity to say this to you 1,000 times, I would, because that's how important I think operating from a framework like this is. Have you ever been in a situation where you're just all twisted up at work, and it's just not working for you? You don't know why, but all you know is that on Sunday night, this is my favorite completely non-scientific test for whether you're happy at work or not. What does Sunday night feel like to you? Have you ever been in a job where you start to get that midday Sunday? Yep. Yeah. Can I get an amen over here? Yeah, right? I mean, so you start to get that feeling, and Sunday takes on a whole new meaning, because midday you start thinking about the week, and you start thinking about all the things you have to do instead of the things you get to do. And all of a sudden, you get to be Sunday night, and you start doing the, are my glands swollen? Do I feel warm? I'm pretty sure I don't feel well. Man, maybe I'll get the flu when I don't have to go to work tomorrow. When you start thinking like that, you are in big trouble, because you've already gotten to the point where you've let it run you. And when you start, don't wait until the day that you're hoping for food poisoning. Wait, you want to get ahead of that. When you start on Sunday to start feeling like, ugh, even slightly, ugh, that's your clue to start stepping back and figuring out what needs to change. Okay? And sometimes it's a little thing, and sometimes you just need to start over. And yeah, certainly the little thing is less painful than the big thing, but depending on where you are, that may be necessary. Okay, we talked about John, who already told me he didn't do his homework. The dog ate it. Do you believe that? Sounds pretty plausible to me. All right, I asked you last week to take a stab at coming up with your career happiness formula. What might it look like? And it was probably messy. It was probably like, I'm not sure if this makes sense. I'm not sure if this is what she was talking about. All I care is that you tried. Does anybody want to talk about their experience? Kind of taking a stab at that? Joe, you told me that you did your homework. See, that's a mistake. You told me you did it. You shouldn't have told me that.
There was a caveat there. You can't call on me the first
time. Oh, me no hear you. No hear. Static.
My homework. Well, I made a list of things that I think I'm good at, and usually what you're good at, you probably like to do.
Usually.
Right. And then out of that list, I came up with some possible jobs.
Okay, now hold on. You made a list of what you like, and then you went back and checked it and said, yeah. Okay, I'm good. I'm sorry, what you're good at. And then you went back and said, yeah, I like these things. Okay, and following the formula, when you said, okay, if I use these things together, do I think there's a way to get paid, or is there a demand for that? And you said, yeah. Yeah. Right? Okay.
Yeah,
Did you? More or less, yeah. Okay. And then in a place you can be successful. When you start thinking about how do you take what you like to do and what you're good at, and put that together in something that's marketable, and then take that to the market, and let's say you put that in like a bag, okay? Get a bag of all that stuff. The goal is to then take that and put that in a place where, in a work environment, in a culture, with leadership, with the right colleagues, mission, product, services, whatever important to you, put it there in a nice warm place for you so that you can be successful. Did you take a crack at defining that?
No.
Did you even think about it? It's okay.
Not really.
So tell me how the exercise was of what am I good at and what do I like to do. Did you have any ahas there?
No, because I've done this 100 times.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good. Then maybe, as you start to move down toward in a place you can be successful. In other words, what that means is, what does my ideal work situation look like? So if you are, let's say you are somebody who is kind of a creative, and you really like working in ideas in places where there's a lot of brainstorming, a lot of open spaces, where your work hours are kind of flexible because you work really well late into the night, but in the morning you're just worthless, and so you want an environment that appreciates that treats you like an adult. There are certain companies in town you won't want to work for, right? And that does not make those companies wrong. It just makes them wrong for you. And there's a big difference. So you can't know whether something's right for you until you know you. So if you said, okay, so I'm good at this, I like to do this, given the fact that I like flexibility and control, I'm working with the client right now who when she went through this exercise of what she liked about all of her jobs, flexibility, control. I mean, those things came up several times. I said, it looks to me like you like flexibility and control. And so therefore, you want a work structure that's going to allow that to some extent. To other people, they're like, you know what, I kind of like to show up at the same time every day. I don't mind that. I'm a very structured person. I like getting up at 6. I like having my banana and my Cheerios, and I like getting to work at the same time. Okay, that's, okay, you have to know that stuff about yourself. So in a place you can be successful, all these pieces have to work, right? What else what other thoughts?
I kind of wrote out something.
Yes, you did. Look at you.
Yes. When I was given this assignment, I said, what a great assignment. Since my mother died last year, I have realized that life is so short, and I should be happy to do what I enjoy doing. Currently, I'm a licensed social worker, case management coordinator in a correctional center. I have been at that job for almost 9 years, and I believe I have grown out of the job. New management has come in, and the job is not as satisfying as it used to be.
Okay, stop right there. Let's talk about what you just said. New management came in, so something changed around place, right? So you've kind of outgrown it. In other words, you've done it for a long time. So do you feel like you're so good at it?
Yes.
But you don't like it anymore.
I don't like it.
Okay, so you're burnt out.
I'm burnt
Sometimes
out.
we hear that, it's being burnt out. Oh, you are. Okay, go ahead.
I also work part-time as a sales associate at TJ Maxx, and I've been doing that for almost 20 years. Even though I still like TJ Maxx as a company, it's no longer satisfying with the new management that has come in.
There you go. Another place change.
Yeah.
Yep.
In the last year, I have found a new hobby. Cooking.
Oh.
My mother was always a collector of cookbooks, and she has a number of great cookbooks. As a child, I used to love to watch her in the kitchen, and she used to let me help her cook. I used to love to watch her bake cakes, which she did the best as. As a child in the summer, she used to send me and my sister over to her aunt's house, and my Aunt Esther made cooking a living for herself by making casseroles for working and elderly people. I used to love to see her bake cookies and make casseroles for people. I found that I love to read recipes and go to the store and get the ingredients to put it together. I can't wait to see how a recipe will turn out. I love to make things in a crock pot. What an invention. At work recently, I entered a chili cook-off contest. 6 other co-workers entered, and my chili came in 2nd place. It was so much fun to enter the contest.
Fabulous. Okay, so there we go. Think about everything she said. A life change. We talked last week, right, about sometimes a life change or it can be a health issue or just a kick in the seat of the pants will propel us toward change because we get really complacent. And sometimes it's getting laid off. When you go, whoa, wait a minute. I thought I was going to be here forever even though I hate it, right? So I thought I was going to be able to hate this forever. Now I find out I'm not going to be so lucky. So I have to go find something else to do. And so it propels us into action. And like you say, sometimes you get to a point where you realize, this is my only shot at this. And so why not be happy? But then there's that security of that job that I hate, but it's secure and they let me in the door on Mondays. And so sometimes there's a lot of stuff that comes together and we reach back sometimes and we discover things that we've always been intrigued by, but we never really thought about it in the context of a career or a job. Right? So it sounds like that's what you're doing. You're rediscovering some things, which is great. Who else? Over here? Mark?
Okay, so I took the approach, I put a list of good at and like to do as a separate list, and there is some common, so I listed some things in both those lists, and then I kind of tried to take a look at them and see what common aspects between what I'm good at and what I like to do, and I haven't really got all the way through that, but the one thing I did do is I pulled out a sheet that I'd used in preparing for an interview about 7 years ago.
Okay.
And it was very, very similar this time through as then. So I don't know whether it's just because I got that in my head already as to what the good at and like to do is, or whether it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah,
That's
so,
a great way to put it.
yeah,
You know, you are really, I mean, the things that we like to do, the things that we're good at, sometimes we get a more mature view of it. Remember I told you the story last week about the woman who owns Loveland Sweets? That when she was little, she wanted to have the biggest candy collection in the world. Okay, I don't think that's something someone will pay you to do. Maybe it's Mr. Guinness or something, but now with more experience, with more wisdom, she makes candy and owns a candy store. And so you have to find those threads that run through your whole life. And I always say, you know what? Sometimes the things we wanted to do when we were little are the best indicators of really who we are, because we want to do those things before people squash us and tell us we can't. Tell that's a dumb idea.
I think I could be a cowboy.
Let's not rule anything out. Cowboy, maybe not. Yeah. So it's, yeah. Sometimes there's some commonalities there. If you go back, like you said, Mark, when you go back and read stuff from like 5, 10, 20 years ago, early in your career, if you ever keep those files, it's like, well, wait a minute. You know, there's pieces of it that you go, I wouldn't want to do that now. But other things you go, wow, I was thinking about that back then. You have to pay attention to that stuff. Those are your internal signals for your change, for your movement. Okay, so we talked last week about define it, get it, and own it. You're either looking to define it, which means I don't know what I want to do, but I know it's not this. Okay, that's when you say stuff like that. Or I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Get it is I know what I want to do, I don't know how to get it. And then own it is I want to stay agile in my career. I want to, do all of the pieces that help me keep my career sustainable. So, okay, so now we're up to date. Anybody else want to add anything from the exercise from last week?
One of the other things I tried to do, and I didn't get too far in this either, was trying to list what I don't like.
You didn't get far, okay.
And it's easy to say you don't like stuff, but it's hard to kind of, for me to kind of quantify it to like a couple bullet points of what I would try to avoid.
Yeah.
You know what? I went through what I liked and what I was good at.
Most people have the opposite problem. Mm-hmm. They can tell you a list of things they don't like, but can't tell you what they do like.
Yeah, well, there's a million. You could say you don't like lots of things, but just really try and get into some specific.
Yeah. So think about jobs that you've had. Mm-hmm. Okay, sometimes it's helpful to go back mentally to a job that you've had and think about, okay, when somebody said to you, hey, Mark, can you do this? And you kind of went, oh, God, did they see me? Can I hide under the desk? What are those things? What are those things? And maybe you have broader skills than a lot of people, but the stuff that if you could avoid it, you would. Or if someone asked for a volunteer, you'd be hiding under the desk. Or the stuff that maybe you did it and you were okay at it because you're smart, but you just really wouldn't want to do it again. So think back to, okay, I always say it's the days when we come home from work and all we want to do is lay on the couch. The energy-sucking days. Sometimes those days can provide a clue. When you go back and say, what are the things I had to do today that I couldn't avoid? It's just if you can even capture those moments or those tasks and then just really break it down. Maybe it's dealing with certain kind of people. Maybe, there's clues there. You just have to spend time and really kind of knit them together because they all work together.
So one of the things I struggled with is knowing a place that you can be successful in. For instance, I've pretty much been in an academic institution for the last 14 years.
Okay.
Knowing what else is available out
Okay.
there, if I'd even enjoy being in that type of environment is foreign to me. So I don't know if I'd be successful in a place like that.
I want you to think about, in 14 years, you've probably had a lot of different bosses, colleagues. There's probably different things you've liked about the culture changes in the organization. List out the times, not job related, but the times from an environment standpoint, working condition standpoint, when you've been the happiest. Okay, so what kind of boss do you thrive under? What kind of colleagues do you like to work with? What frustrates you? Sometimes when you ask questions like that, what's the last time you were really frustrated at work? That helps you get at what are those aspects that kind of knock you off your game. Think about the days at work when you've been the happiest. What kind of conditions existed? Just sort of, just kind of go back to those good days and bad days, or I'm sorry, good times and bad times. Like, man, the time from this year to this year when Fred was in charge, that was a lot of fun because it was very collaborative. I was working with really smart people, you know, and just sort of, you know, just figure it out as much as you can in terms of what were some of the aspects of the environment you were in. And also, Glendon, I would challenge you to think about what aspects of your work environments you've not liked. Because if you say, you know, I have not liked times when there's been times when I've been super micromanaged and it drove me crazy. Okay, now we know you like to have freedom and flexibility in your work. So if you just start that list, you don't have to get completely there, but just start it now. Okay? All right, I
think I must be a very structured person, because you were talking about the times when you really dread
Yep.
it. The times I've dreaded it the most is when I think that, I have to go out and job hunt and network, and I'm not really sure exactly what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
On Sunday, I would dread a week where I know I have to go do that.
You know what? I honestly don't think there's too many job seekers that sit around on Sunday saying, I get to go out and shop myself to the market on Monday. You know? I mean, there are truly, I have had people say to me, gosh, I wish I could get paid to network. If I could just get paid to get out there and network and talk to people, I would love that. But in terms of like really enjoying putting yourself out there for certain rejection, I don't mean certain all the time, but job search comes with it the certainty that you will be rejected, right?
But that's inherent.
And that's icky, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, and you're right. Job search is also very, very unstructured. So you have to set your week up so that if you're better in the morning, if you're more perky in the morning, do your phone calls and your meetings in the morning. You know, you've got to set it up, because I'm telling you what, if you've been in a job search, you know that if you get up on Monday morning and sit in front of that computer first thing in the morning, pretty soon you're going to look up and it's Wednesday, and you're still in the same robe that you were on Monday. Yeah, because it just sucks you in. All right. How will you share your message? So Mark, you made this list of things that you're good at, things that, he left. Where'd he go? So Mark, can you speak for Mark? He's afraid of me?
That's what I'm saying.
Joe, all right, Joe, you asked for it. Okay, so when you say, here's what I'm good at, here's what I like to do. Is that when you kind of think back to, okay, so I've got these sentences, I really enjoy going through recipes. Mark, I called on you when you weren't here, and they said you were scared of me. Yeah, I'm just telling you.
I got that on my list.
Yeah, okay. So Joe, you also went through this process of saying, here's what I like to do, here's what I'm good at. Is that a message that you've shared with people in a search? Have you sat down in a networking situation and said, when I think about my right next role, it will have...
Probably not.
Okay.
When I network with people in a search, my focus is more on what I've done. Not necessarily what I want to do or would be more fulfilled doing.
Excellent point. That's an excellent point. Okay, now, I'm really glad you said that. This is our tendency. It's to talk about the rear view mirror instead of the what's it? Like, it's not the front view mirror. This is our tendency, isn't it? But there's a reason the rear view mirror is this big and the windshield's this big. So, but let me tell you, there is importance to what you've done before today. Okay, so everybody is sitting here today with a past, okay, that starts up until a minute ago. Okay, so we all have the things that we've done. The things that we've done are our evidence that we can do what we look to do in the future. So if I say, I really would like to be a pastry chef, and people say, well, tell me about your experience and qualifications. Well, I don't really have any, but I just really like to eat pastry. Okay, so in other words, I can say I want to be this, but unless I have this that tells the story to back it up, I'm not going to get anywhere. Okay? But when we spend too much time talking about what we've done, this is one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest, I think, disconnects when people are in a job search. You can talk all day about what you have done, and then when people say, well, what do you want to do now? What are you looking to do? Well, that's when we get all mealy-mouthed and mushy and say, well, I just want a challenge working with good people. I'm really open. I can do about anything. No, you can't. Your experience qualifies you for certain things moving forward. It's not like I've done all this and now I can do this, right? So you have to, your background qualifies you. So now, so here's what I've done till today. Here's what I'm going to be doing in the future, whatever it is. Okay, let's look ahead. Your job as you leave your past is to figure out what you want your future to look like and then message to it. And then be able to talk about it. Because what you do is you give away your power and your ability to draw that picture for someone. If you say, I don't know, what do you think I should do? Well, you've seen my resume, what do you think I should do? And you would not believe how many people do that. Well, I'm really open, I just thought you could look at my resume and tell me what you think I could do. And that is just, first of all, people are like, oh, I don't really want that responsibility. And second of all, it's just so like, it says, I don't care enough about my career to figure it out. I'm hoping you can care more than I do. Uh-huh.
I guess also when I network, I want to find out what they want to do because I read 100 job descriptions of jobs I'm not interested in.
Sure.
But if I hear something and I says, oh, I know that John or whoever
absolutely
is interested in that, at least that's something I can pass on to them.
Yeah, that's right. So when you are looking at changing careers or making a small pivot or whatever we're looking about, it's up to you. You have to connect the dots between your past and your future. And you do that in two ways. You have to tell the right story about your past. I mean, you have to be able to tell that story. But you also, but at the end of telling the story about your past, you say, and moving forward, kind of given my experience, here's what I'd like to do. In other words, here's what qualifies me, skills, experience, interest, education, resources, etc., to do what I want to do. And so the person who hears that message has to be able to hear you and has to be able to go, oh, I see. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Generally, we poo-poo a lot of our experience and our knowledge and our, oh, I did that. Didn't everybody do that? We aren't really good at giving ourselves credit for what we've done and what we know. That's when I say, like, what's your story? How are you going to tell that story so that people believe that someone with your past could do that moving forward? And sometimes you don't even have all the experience you need, but if you've got the interest, the passion, and you can articulate it, people will say, you know what, I'm going to give this person a chance. So we want to be able to connect those dots. So great question. So you want to do more talking about your future and your interests so that people can go, oh, I get it. I know how to help you. Okay, so that's, but if you're just talking about your past, I don't know, I'm not sure how to fit that. Okay. Can anybody describe their ideal role right now? Has anybody gotten to the point? Joe, what do you want to do? Do you know?
Well, I wrote some things down.
Okay.
Writing a blog.
Okay.
And I have no idea if you could make money doing that. I imagine some people do.
Mm-hmm.
I like to write.
Okay, there you go.
I'm a good writer.
Okay.
Write a blog.
Okay.
I used to tell my father I was going to write a book, and he'd always say, when are you going to get started? Mm-hmm. That's all he'd say.
And you know what? It is easier now than ever. Oh my gosh. The resources and tools available.
The other thing is I like to organize things, show correlations.
Connect dots.
Data, connect dots, that kind of stuff. So I was thinking about like doing research or doing reports on research and doing some kind of an analysis.
Ah, okay. So because a lot of people who like to write don't really like to look at data. Sometimes those are two different people. So how you could go through and take really technical reports, take and like do summaries, blog about it. Here's what I learned. So when you start to just really say, and then I'd really like to have freedom and flexibility. I'd like to do that in this space or in this industry. I'm really fascinated by healthcare and medical research or not. Or, so when you start like one and you start, what you're doing is it's kind of like you're having all these little puzzle pieces that you're writing on and you're putting them all together. And you're breaking them apart and saying, okay, these 10 pieces put together look like this. I'll take 5 of those, get 5 new ones, put them together, and that makes this opportunity. We're not very good at thinking creatively about ourselves because we are the worst ones, actually, in terms of keeping ourselves in a box. Others, if we explain it properly, can really help us brainstorm through that. But when we try to do it for ourselves, we do the, oh, I can't do that. Who'd hire me to do that? I don't think anybody does that. Okay. So Joe, who would you talk to? Have you thought about, so if you've got, like, here's these pieces of things I think I want to do. Have you thought about, I don't need names, but have you thought about who you might talk to run your ideas by to help clarify them?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, you know, I used to think anybody could write a blog, and maybe anybody can write a blog. I guess it's just getting the space on the internet and
Okay.
going for it.
Okay, so who
However, there are people that, you know, to me, only because I've got an interest in current events also, but it seems to me that, like, news reporters, you know, pundits, what have you, they all have blogs.
Yep.
The people that write and cover the sports teams throughout the country, they all have blogs. And plus they're all on Twitter and everything else. So I don't, you know, I wouldn't know really where to start.
Write the name of this book down, Pro Blogger.
Pro blog.
Pro Blogger, Chris Garrett. Get that
I'm
book
sorry,
and read it. By Chris Garrett, Pro Blogger. Chris Garrett. I think his name's Chris Garrett. I'll help you get started.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So let's say that you and Joe were having coffee together, and Joe said, "You know, I really like this. I like this. I like this. I really want to learn more about how I might use these skills collectively." What kind of a person? How would you suggest Joe get started? Who would you suggest he talk to? Not by name, but sort of by someone who does this, or, you know, who would you suggest he talk to?
Job coach.
A job coach? Okay. How about somebody who's already doing it? Yeah, somebody who's already doing it. Somebody who's already successfully blogging. Anytime anybody can help you shorten your learning curve, it's a win. Okay, so you want to, anytime you can look at, say, who's already doing it. And this brings us to my next slide. Oops, hold on. Okay. Then the question becomes, when you start thinking about, here's all the stuff I've done, do I, you know, is this even possible? I'd like to be able to tell you, you know, everything is possible, but we know that's not true. We're all old enough to know that's not true. So, is there demand for what you want to do? Will people pay for it? Are people looking for it? Are you skilled and capable? This gets back to, are you good at it? Is it something that, Joe, if you decided you want to blog on these topics, is that something that, is there space? Are you differentiated enough? You know, I would suggest getting started guest blogging. Try to be a guest blogger for someone. Just get out there, okay? So you'll find out pretty quickly whether anybody pays attention, whether you enjoy doing it, whether it's as much fun as you thought it was. So we have these great ideas, and you say, okay, so now I want to start thinking about how I'm going to execute that. So is there even a market for busy people who want casseroles to put in the freezer to pull out, you know, on a busy day? Yes. Talk to me. You know, so you have to kind of start getting out there and saying, here's what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think? And take it to really smart, critical people. Take your ideas to people who are not going to blow smoke up your skirt, who are going to say, you know, Joyce, here are the things that I see wrong with this. Or here's the things that, you know, I would question. Or have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? So you don't want to take your little idea and just keep it between your ears, because nothing is going to happen there. You want accountability, you want input, you want feedback. You want people to help you adjust. You know, I can think of people who gave me advice 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when I started the business 5 years ago. Sometimes I go back and look through those notes, and it's really funny. And I'll see things and I'll go, oh my gosh, that is a brilliant idea. But I'm ready to hear it today. I wasn't ready to hear it 3 years ago. Or, oh, look, so-and-so told me that wasn't going to work. Oh, they were really right. I don't think I'm going to call them and tell them, though. You know, I tried this, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Or they were right. Gee, if I only would have listened. But sometimes we have to come to these things ourselves. So sometimes, you know, so it's get the smartest people that you can to give you ideas and input. All right. Is what I want to do even possible? Okay. Let's talk about how to find that out. so you're thinking about, okay, there's all this stuff I want to put together, all these ideas I have. I want to go out and talk to people. So here's some of the things to think about. Who's doing it now? You would be surprised at how generous people are. And I think about the mistakes I made, and I think about the money I wasted, I think about the mistakes I made, and I justify that by saying, maybe if I can share that with somebody else and keep them from making a mistake, I can call it tuition, life tuition. So who's doing it now? Are they successful at it? Are they being successful at it? And you have to define what successful means. If you want to make $1 million a year doing it, is that possible? Or 60,000 or whatever it is. In other words, how successful is it? And what does the future look like? This was in the Sunday paper, and these are the kind of things you have to take care of. You have to pay attention to. This is a USA Today graphic. It was in the Enquirer on Sunday, and it's called "Where Are the Jobs?" And it talks about where the top hiring sectors are going to be in the next 4 years. This kind of information is out there. And let's see, the highest one is professional and business services, or a service economy. You can look at this afterward if you want. It doesn't mean that if what you want to do, it's only 6%. Don't take it that way. But there's a lot of information out there. So when you start talking about demand, if there's no, there is, I will never forget this one client years and years ago who, she loved music, and she decided she wanted to open a sheet music store. This was before everything was online. So this is probably 12 years ago. And so sheet music for bands and school groups and things like that. This is great. There's only one in town. Surely, in a big city like this, we can support more than one. So she opened, and it was on the west side. So she went and got a space in Blue Ash and went and, opened up a sheet music store. And well, then she finds out, after spending all the money and opening the store, that everybody in town was loyal to this guy on the west side, and that no one would buy from her because they only bought from him. Why would we go for someone else? So in that case, well, and then I was telling this story a few years ago, and someone said, yeah, he's out of business now too. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's the name. I never would have thought about it. But everything, now is he still alive?
Is he still alive?
Is he, yeah.
As far as I know.
Oh, okay, okay. Because I was thinking that, did he die or did he go to business? But yeah, everything's online now. But it's easy to say, wow, who's doing it now? Only one guy? That's great. There's room for one more in a town this size. Are they successful? Well, yeah. But there was this piece missing when she looked at, she didn't talk to enough people. And so therefore, boom, she lost a lot of money. And so sometimes when you just look at the data, it's not enough. So there are a lot of people in, there's a lot of financial planners. There's a lot of, florists and hairdressers and insurance agents and those sort of things. It doesn't mean there might not be room for one more who had just a unique spin or had a differentiator or just was really good at certain things, had a real specialty. So research, it's not only stuff like this. I mean, you hear all the time, healthcare, obviously, there's certain parts of healthcare that cannot be outsourced. Physical therapy, speech therapy probably, like a physician's assistant. There's a lot of the hands-on long-term care. Any sort of those spaces. When you look at demographics, look at the boomers. The boomers are getting older and older, and so the top end of that, there's going to be a lot of services, and the boomers are very different from the generation before. They want to look younger, feel younger, be younger, not sit in a rocking chair. And so what's the demand there? There's a ton of opportunity there. So when you start looking at technology, green, any sort of like energy, sort of green products and services. So those are the things you hear all the time. But don't just limit your thinking to that. Anytime there's a need, there's a business or an opportunity that can be created. So you have to think in terms of need and demand. So researching, there's a lot of information out there. Joe likes to research. You can talk to him. Talking to people, yeah. Especially if you're an introvert, you just think, if I just think about this long enough, I'm going to figure it out. not possible because you don't have all the information. You don't have all the resources, you don't have all the connections, you don't have all the ahas. Talking to one right person can propel you significantly in a direction you never even thought of that might be more successful. So who, when you look at, so we talk to people, I sort of gave my answers away up there, but you know, we talked about talking to somebody who's doing it now. What kind of questions might you ask them?
How did you get your start?
Okay, how'd you get your start? Do you think anybody's going to refuse to answer that question?
Oh, no, people love to talk about it.
You got it, they sure do. Yeah, and I think if you're talking to the right people, they're going to tell you all the ways they screwed up as well as the moments they were brilliant, and the screw-ups are generally more common than the brilliant moments. I know, what else, what might you ask somebody else? What other questions might you ask?
What's a typical day like?
Yeah. What else?
Are you happy?
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Along the lines of what you said before, it's like if you had known then what you know now.
Would you have done it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. Know a guy who bought a franchise, a ServPro franchise, and they get into tight spaces and clean. They go in and clean icky stuff. I don't know exactly what. Well, he discovered after buying the franchise that he is incredibly claustrophobic. Didn't know that. So, you know, he starts crawling in these spaces, starts freaking out. He had to sell it. So there's all these things that we don't know. So if you talk to somebody and maybe job shadowed and you know, maybe actually got in and did the job for a while, you really know what you're getting into. There's a woman in town, really successful franchise owner, Cynthia Booth, if you know that name. I think she was out of P&G or where she was coming from, but she owns a lot of McDonald's and a lot of, and somebody was telling me about her the other day, and they said she actually, in order for her to buy into the franchise, in order for her to do it, she had to go work in a McDonald's, I think out in Hillsborough, for 2 years. And so she worked P&G during the day, I think it was P&G, McDonald's at night. Don't tell me she didn't know what she was getting into. And she's wildly successful. But boy, I mean, you talk about commitment. So you have to get in there and you've got to talk to people. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? What are the, you know, what kind of hours do you work? And if you've got small kids, it may not be possible. Cynthia?
Oh, ask them about background. Are there certain certifications you need? It's
Yeah.
education. If they do hiring, what sort of things do they look for for their employees?
Yeah, any small business owner is going to tell you that's one of the hardest parts of their job is finding good people. Because when you're a business owner, you care so much about your business. Go ahead. Okay, that it's hard to find somebody else who cares as much as you do. Yeah, it's like, why don't they care as much? Yeah, so it's kind of hard.
Obviously, I wasn't here last week. Here today, and I am a retired educator,
Okay.
retired principal.
Okay.
I have, over the last 2, 3, 4 months, looked at some different employment. I know that I would like to work for a nonprofit.
Okay.
I know that I would like to be engaged in community activism,
Okay.
advocacy, so forth
Okay.
and so on. I have not been very successful
Okay.
in this search for new employment because of age, and I have done all of the things that I have been advised to do to hide age, but there comes a point where you go in and people can see you and they know that you are not 21, 22, 30 years old.
Yep.
The money issue is not a big concern
Okay.
for me. I made good money when I was in the education industry, and now I'm willing $25,000, $30,000, $35,000. Well,
Okay.
say that you're viewed with some suspicion or something. I don't know what it is, but none of these things seem to be working for me.
Yeah.
What approach should I take?
I would imagine, where were you principal, by the way?
St. Peter Claver.
We donate to there. I love that
Did
place.
you?
That's a great place. Yeah, we're actually monthly donors.
Bob Ketterer just died.
I saw that.
Yeah, just buried.
St. Peter Claver. It's a private school in Over the Rhine, all boys school, and it Yeah, St. Peter Claver Latin School. Yeah, it's now part of the Archdiocese, isn't it? Because it wasn't for a long time, and so they had to rely on private donations. It's a wonderful little school. Let's talk after. Okay, I'll give you some thoughts. Okay, I knew the principal's name was Jerome. I'm like, I wonder who's on. Okay, all right. So you're going to talk to your potential customers, right? What's missing? You know, here are the service providers for this. What's missing? What might you see? What might you like to have that you don't have in the current service providers? Potential. So talk to potential employers. When you hire people like for these kind of roles, what do you look for? How can I better prepare myself? What you never want to do, but what you're going to find yourself doing sometimes is walking in blind and saying, I'm going to go look for this type of a job. I have no idea if anybody would hire me. I have no idea if I'm qualified. I have no idea if I'd like it. I'm just going to try it. Well, that's a recipe for disaster. So you want to have whatever you do, you want to have it well researched. You want to have it, you want to know what you're getting into, because if you, believe me, if you have done your research and you've said, here's what I've learned, here's what why I think I'm a good fit. In other words, I have learned all this stuff and I'm still interested. You have a greater probability for success, right? Versus the guy who bought the franchise and discovered he was claustrophobic. I look back and I think there had to be a way to find that out in advance, don't you think? You know, so what can you do to increase your chances for success? So I'm a big fan of something called an advisory board. And it's not like anything formal. It's not like anything, you're not paying people to do it. But what you're saying is you ask a few people who know you well and who are invested in your success, or who care about your success. You can't ask 3 strangers to be on your advisory board because they don't have any skin in the game. They don't necessarily care about your success. I mean, we're too busy. So you have maybe 3 or 4 people who know you, who are fans of yours, who think highly of you, who want you to succeed, and you ask them if they would mind serving kind of as in an advisory role for you as you go through this change. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to get together once a week, but what it means is, and here's what I would say. I would say, Joyce, I really respect your input. You have a lot of knowledge about this industry I'm trying to get into, and you're well respected, and I just want to make sure that I don't make any missteps. Would you mind, while I'm going through this transition to your field, if we touched base, maybe once every few weeks, and if I would just maybe even by email let you know what I'm doing, and just have you take a look at it and see if I'm missing anything, or if you'd be willing to have coffee with me once a month, I would really appreciate it. And of course, I would love to try to do anything I can to help you succeed as well. Most people, especially when you say, here's why I value your input, they will respond. I get calls all the time from people wanting to meet with me because, and I'm I ask a lot of questions. I will say, what did you hope to accomplish? Why do you want to meet? Well, blah, blah, so-and-so said we should. Okay, what do you hope to accomplish when we meet? Well, I'm like, okay, we got to do better than that. Well, so-and-so said you know a lot of people. I do. That's true. That's not reason enough to ask somebody to meet with you. Why not? What's wrong with that? Yeah, yeah. Is there anything in it for me at this point? To meet with somebody who says, I want to meet you because you know a lot of people?
Not really.
Not really.
Right? Okay? So, when we think about, and I want to sort of plant this thinking with you because this is the pillar of moving forward. Whoops. Okay, I'm going to skip that over. I want to come back. Networking. Huh?
I've never done that.
What? Not what?
Networking.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, you have to.
No, I applied for a job, I got it, and I've been in the same place for 17 years.
You should never, okay, networking is a constant event. It's not something you only do when you're looking for a job. Okay.
I mean, I meet people, but
Well, that's networking. All right, let's talk about what it is. See, you have a different impression. So
I
let's.
don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I,
I'm going to tell you.
thank you.
Okay.
I value your opinion.
Okay, excellent.
You know, I do.
Or you can be on my advisory board.
That's right, that's right. Okay, networking, I'm going to talk about what this is. But the first sentence up there is why it's so important. We get nowhere alone. Nowhere. And so whether it's success on a project, whether it's success in our roles, no matter what it is, someone else helped us get there. Either an idea or an input or an introduction or a piece of information or some support, just a listening ear. And so when you look at changing careers, it's exactly the same way. You will get where you're going to get through your contacts and through new contacts that you make throughout the process. Over 2/3 of people get their jobs through other people nationwide. In Cincinnati, it's probably a lot higher because this is such a highly networked town. And so if you get out there and you're connecting to the right people, then it can really exponentially fire up your search or fire up your move. Networking, I am an absolute evangelist for networking. It's the foundation of solid, proactive career management, and it is not optional. You can't opt out of networking. I used to have clients come in and go, you know, I really want to find a job, but don't you try to make me network. Like, all right, well then, have fun sitting at home for the next several years. If over 2/3 of people find their jobs that way, why would you immediately say, let's take that off the board? I'm just going to sit at home and answer ads. What % of people find their jobs through online services, like job bulletin boards and online services?
2%.
About 7 or 8. Yeah, but it's definitely the single digits. But I don't know this statistic, but if I had to guess about where people spend most of their job search time, the amount of time they spend online is pretty high. So, hey, I think I'm going to spend most of my time doing really unproductive stuff. In no other part of our life does that make sense. But it's how we spend our time. So when you are looking to do all the stuff we've talked about, get information, connect to resources, find out what your gaps are, find out if it's possible to have this business you want or move into the career you want, you have to actually reach out and talk to people and get a lot of opinions. Now, you may have this core advisory board, but reaching out to people and getting opinions, very, very important. Here's what it is. Joyce Roberts, here's what it is. The ability and willingness to build and maintain mutually beneficial relationships that support your goals. Ability and willingness. You have to know how to network, and you got to do it. Build and maintain. It's not a one-time thing. It's not like, you know, having coffee with Joe and saying, Joe is one of my core networking contacts, because we've only met once. Now, the more contacts we have with people, and the more higher quality those contacts are, the more we are likely to have that person as a part of our network. I keep hitting the wrong button here. So, ability and willingness to build mutually beneficial relationships. Remember when I said people call me and say, hey, I'd like to meet with you because you know a lot of people? You know that day in the future where we get to say anything we want to people? That one day when we get to just, really that, I'm going to say, why would I do that? Tell me what's in it for me. And I would never really say that, but that's really what you've got to think. When you ask somebody to meet with you, you can appeal to their willingness to help, certainly, but even in the meeting, you might say, I'd really like to get your input on X, Y, and Z. I know you have a lot of experience here, and I think that because here's who you are and what you know, here's who I am and what I'm looking to do, I thought you might give me some ideas. Now, some people will say I could talk to you on the phone, which is fine. I mean, face-to-face is better, but on the phone, sometimes it's all you're going to get, especially when somebody's really busy. Build and maintain. So you meet with somebody, and you're not quite sure what you have to give. With some people, it's as easy as saying, if there's ever anything I can do for you, please let me know. That is incredibly powerful. You don't have to come armed with a pocket full of good stuff to hand out, but really it's about, if I help you and then I ask you for help in a couple months and you don't return my call, that's a problem. Okay, and then you call me again when you need something, that's a bigger problem. And there are people who operate like that. We have to build and maintain mutually beneficial relationships that support our goals. That support our goals. That support our goals. Not everybody's a great networking contact for you. It depends on what your goals are. But there are other people, Margaret, there's some people that are going to be good networking contacts for you that Joe might like that person, but they're not going to be in his professional network in support of his goals. Okay? So you have to be really focused on what am I trying to get? I'm trying to find a nonprofit leadership position in a community-based organization that, you know, is focused on blah, blah, and blah. Okay? So that way, if he says that to me, I'm not going to point him to the symphony, because that's not aligned with what he wants. So if he meets me and I'm on the symphony board, he might like me, but I will probably not be a networking contact that can support that goal. Likewise, if he meets Emily and finds out that Emily is on the board of an organization that, let's say Emily's the executive director of the Emmanuel Center in Over the Rhine. Okay? Oh, well, you can reasonably assume that she knows some people, that you guys know people in common, and she knows some people that you might like to know. Now, I might also, as someone on the symphony board, not the sympathy board, the symphony board, but chances are, yeah, she's a better use of your networking time. And we don't have that much time. So we want to, so when we're clear and crisp about our goals, and I don't mean like, I want to do only this, but I mean, here's some of the things I really like to do. I'd like to find a way to weave these things together. Here's some of my interests. Here's some of the things I've written about in the past. Here's the stuff I read. You know, here, you know, then we move toward, and people refer to us, people that are in that space. I've had clients before where they come in and they're like, well, you know, I really don't know what I want to do, and you know, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. Can you give me a list of your contacts? No. I mean, these were like when I was at Lee Hecht Harrison, the clients. Like, because you're just going to show up and waste their time. You have to know what you're looking for. You have to know what kind of networking activity you want.
Talking about contacting strangers.
You guys are so good about setting me up for the next slide. No!
It's this table.
You guys are my plants. You're awesome. You already have a network. Yes, you do. Joyce, you already have a network. And I'm not asking, who are they? Okay, get your pen. Let me give you their names. We think sometimes, when we think of a network, is we have to go out and meet 200 new strangers. We have to go meet strangers. That's really, really painful. Going to events where you know no one and having to press the flesh is horrible. I don't even mind it. I mean, I don't even like it. No. I walk into a room where I don't know anybody, and I'm like, ugh. You know, it's just, and that may be hard to believe, but it's true. So you already have a network. Okay, so there's nothing magic about it. Your network is everybody you know who is neutral or better in their opinion of you. People who don't like you are not a great networking contact, all right? Here's what I want to think. If you watch TV, you may have seen the Verizon commercial. The guy, I don't even know if they run it anymore, but the guy with the black glasses.
Can you hear me now?
No, Verizon. He's the one that when you get off the plane, you're running, and he's got his clipboard, and he's got his 250 people standing behind him. They're there for you and your cell phone needs. Okay? I want you to keep that visual in mind. Okay? Let's pretend I'm the Verizon guy in the black glasses. Okay? Behind me stand, invisibly, all the people I know. Okay? You can't possibly know who those people are, first of all, because they're invisible. But if they were, so people don't walk around with a big sign that says, here's all the people I know, pick out the 3 you'd like to meet. So you don't know who I know. I don't know who you know. I don't know who you know. The more we talk, we might find we know some people in common. But you can't possibly know who my network is. So therefore, if I am Glendon's next door neighbor and I'm a stay-at-home mom, and he might not even consider me as a networking contact. However, we have a lot of fun at parties. We like to talk in the driveway. You know, I really like your wife. Our kids, you know, get along well together. But we just talk about neighborhood stuff. We don't really talk about, you know, work stuff. You don't know who I know, and it'd be easy for you to assume that that I do not have any good networking contacts for you. The people, whoops, I'm going to go back. We're going to come back. I want you to show you, think about this. Here's your visual. The people that know us best are our best contacts because they care. Rung E, which is not up there, that's the strangers. People you have, everybody you know, falls somewhere in that rung. And I'm going to talk about what the A, B, C, and D's are in a minute. But I want you to think visually about this. There's you in the middle. These are everybody you know. Okay? So the closer someone is to you, and the goal is not to move everybody to an A. It's not possible because you can't have that many, close networking contacts. It would wear you out. Because in order to keep somebody as a close networking contact, remember you have to build and maintain? It's a lot of work. So we have these people that we're already in touch with, and they know all kinds of people. I do this experiment when I speak to large groups, and when I do like a whole thing on networking. I'll say, okay, somebody stand up and share a goal. And I never have it planned. Somebody stand up and share one of their goals. Tell me what kind of contacts you need to reach your goals. Just stand up and share your goal. Somebody will stand up and they'll go, I'd really like to blah, 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 blah. I'll say, is there anybody here who might have a contact or an idea for this person? 2 or 3 hands go up every time. I can help you with that. I know so-and-so. I can help you with that. Have you thought about this web? I can. And the person's like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah. You see what happens when you open your mouth and start talking to people? So the closer people are to us, presumably, the better they know us, the more invested they are in our success. If I say to, what's your first name?
Angie.
Angie. I know it started with an A. You should hide your name tag. Angie, if I say, it does a lot of good in that bag, Angie. If I say, Angie, I'm really trying to find out the best way to start a blog, okay? And I know that you've started, and I say, do you know anybody who has a blog? And you might say, well, yes, I do. My friend Joyce has one. I know that she'd be willing to talk to you about how she got it started. So imagine that conversation, okay? Same question. I'm in the checkout line at Target. I turn around to the person behind me and I say, hi, I'm Julie. Look, I'm looking to start a blog. Do you know anybody that would talk to me? Right, they would change lanes, wouldn't they? Okay? Yeah. And so it's kind of like, why would I? Why would I? But when you are connecting with people who already know you and care about you, the why would I is already answered. Now you will find one of the things about job search, and Jerome, you may nod when I say this because you may have already experienced this. Sometimes your A contacts disappoint you and your C contacts delight you, right? Yeah. Your A contacts are like, wow, I really thought that person would be more helpful. Sometimes they don't know how, or and sometimes people you don't know well really step up to the plate and help. And it's just kind of one of those, you find out what your friends are good for kind of moments. And not everybody's good for everything. But it's important that you look at your network this way. Okay, and I'm going to back up. Okay? Go back to where we were. Oh, okay. Okay. Neighbors, friends, alumni associations, your friends' parents, your parents' friends, depending on how old you are. Neighbors, people you go to church with, hobby clubs, community organizations. Every place that they know you, you have the potential to have these kind of conversations. Now, there are different levels of network, but, so you're not going to say to a C contact, would you be on my advisory, or a D contact, would you be on my advisory board and can we meet once a week? A little much, okay? So you want to be careful what you're asking for. So there's personal. People in this room, you have something in common. What is it?
We're all looking for jobs.
And what else? Right? What else?
Graduating from college.
From where? What college?
UC University.
Yeah. So there's something common that brought you here. There's a LinkedIn group of UC alums that would be a great place. You know what LinkedIn is? Look it up, LinkedIn. You need a LinkedIn profile. They do? Oh, God. Definitely come. Okay. Oh, yeah, you got to be on LinkedIn. Got to be. Okay, so what was I saying? Okay, so you're all here in this sort of searching mode. You all are UC alums, so therefore you already have something in common. So if we had like a big break right now, which we're not going to, you would be very comfortable getting up and talking to the other people in the room, right? Because you're here for the same reason. But if you're at, Ruby Tuesdays and you just get up and start walking around the room and talking to people at their tables, that's weird, right? Yeah, so that's going to get you kicked out. But here, you will probably not get kicked out, depending on what you say. Okay, so you have to, it's what's appropriate. Professional network. Are you in any clubs or organizations like a CPA society or it could be a church, but church can also be personal. Former coworkers, people that used to work here, that have gone on to do other things, Glendon, who have experience outside of an academic environment. Let's see, former bosses who've gone on to work elsewhere, or they work somewhere else in the organization, customers, vendors, suppliers. People you know based on your profession, okay? Other social workers that work inside different organizations, okay, right? So they get you, okay? And then, how about people in your current organization, people that work here? Or people that work, either if you work here, they work here, or if you work elsewhere, they work with you, but they're good contacts. And maybe they know that you're looking to do something else. Maybe just inside your organization you're looking to move. Okay, so everybody you know is in your network. There are different levels, thank you, there are different levels of helpfulness that people can be. Everybody's capable of helping in different ways. So when you think about this, now again, last time I said if you want a copy of my slides, please leave your contact information. You may because of this slide, because this kind of shows out what it is, okay? So we're going to brush over this. We're going to mention it again next week because this is really, really important. D, remember that outer rung. Someone you know well enough to speak to casually or even more in depth from time to time. You don't know a lot about each other's goals or interests at this time. Someone you talk to in the hallway. Someone you chat with at church. You may know what they do, you may not. But you know them well enough to stop and talk for a minute. Not just you recognize them, okay? Excuse me. Colleague. You cross paths professionally, maybe even meet once in a while. You might see each other in the meetings. You might say, hey, Angie, I didn't know you were going to be here. I'm going to sit here with you. Maybe you chat a little bit. You know a little bit about your interest in cooking. You might understand a little bit about what they do. Usually you know enough, some of the basics, okay? Collaborator. This is where you really start to get to know somebody. This is where you can really start to potentially step out on someone's behalf. Now, I've not ever hired Emily directly, but I know people who have, and they say good things about her. I've talked to Emily several times, really impressed. She always has great input. So in other words, I'm stepping out a little bit, and I'm going to say good things about you. So let's say I recommend you to Cynthia. Emily, and whatever you're looking to do, I recommend you to my friend Cynthia. I say, you know what, she's pleasant, she's nice, she shows up on time, I think she's worth a look. So you hire her to do something, make your window treatments or something, okay? And you call me back and you say, you've got to come over here and look at these. I don't think that woman's ever touched a sewing machine before. Thank you so much for that recommendation, Julie. Right? And then I'm like, whoa, I'm never going to recommend Emily again. But imagine if you say to someone, I used Emily, she did my window treatments, they are fabulous. If you don't hire her, you are crazy. That's a pretty strong recommendation, isn't it? You're not going to make that for a D. You're going to make that potentially for an A or a B. Someone you've experienced, their professional competence and character. You know what she's looking for. So if Emily says to me, I'm really looking to start a window treatment business, if you know of anybody who's moving into a home or is looking to have their home redone, their window treatments redone, refer them to me. Oh my gosh, you're so good that I'm going to go out and look for people. Every time I hear somebody moving, I'm going to go, hey, what's going on with your window treatments? I got a great recommendation. Do you know somebody that is that good at something that you go out of your way to recommend them because you know it's going to go well? Do you know people like that? Sometimes on Facebook, people will say, hey, I'm looking for a good dentist. Or I'm looking for, does anybody know somebody who's really good at this? Isn't that a great way to find good people, whether it's employees or service providers, because you're taking the recommendation from someone you trust. Someone's putting their seal of approval on you. The better we know somebody, the more willing we are to do that. Now, like I said before, the goal is not to move everybody. Sorry, put it back up. I'll put it back up. The goal is not to move everybody inward, because it's impossible. And people move back and forth. I made a list when I started my business of my A's, B's, and C's. And I think I had 8 to 10 A's. That's it. And because you can't be advocating for those people. You can't be advocating for 20 people. You just can't. It wears you out. You just spend all your time networking. And people move back and forth. But this is, I want you to think about your contacts when you think about this. Who do I know who could help me advance my interests by either finding out more, giving me ideas, contacts, resources, trying to shoot my ideas down to see if they're, if I'm onto something. Who are those people? And potentially, who do those people know? Sometimes our best contacts are our second-degree contacts, and this is what LinkedIn helps you with, Joyce. And anybody in this room, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, okay? Because, as we know, I know a lot of people. I'm just kidding. Okay. What?
We respect her.
You better. Okay. Okay. So here's our list again. Okay. I'll leave that up at the end too. Okay. So here's. I'll come back. I'll come back. Don't panic, Joyce. Okay. Who has a notebook? I saw Angie had a notebook. Who has a career notebook now? You guys are my favorite, David and Angie. Teacher's pets. You really should have one place that you keep all this stuff in. Your contacts, your ideas, your resources, etc. I want you to think about, for next week, I want you to write down, I want you to keep writing. If you didn't do last week's homework, start writing it down. There is something powerful about putting pen to paper. You feel more likely to do it. Because sometimes when we've got stuff between our ears, it's really easy to go, well, that's a dumb idea. I'm not going to write that down, that's too stupid. Or, I don't know about that. Let me come back and think about it later. And then we miss it. We lose it. So you want to write stuff down. Write down some initial ideas. And start to think about, where am I going to look for this information? In other words, what we talked about earlier. Who's already doing it? Are they successful? Who can I talk to find out what the possibilities are? What research can I do to find out if there's a demand for this? And then I want you to step into your network. And by that, I mean, I don't mean you need to start calling people. You can if you want to, if you feel like you're ready. But what I want you to think about, I want you to think in terms of your A's, your B's, and your C's. Okay, your D's, But I want you to start thinking about, and maybe even just think about your A's. Maybe let's just think about your A's and your B's. Start making a list. I want you to come up with, for next week, I want you to come up with 5 A's, 10 B's. Oh, come. 5 A's and 10 B's. Wah, wah, wah. 5 A's,
This is my question. If you're the construction guy that wants to be a ballerina.
I don't believe that you are.
But anyway, you don't know anybody in your A or B group that's a ballerina.
But they do. Somebody in your A or B group knows somebody who's a ballerina. Or knows something about ballet.
Or knows somebody who knows somebody who
yeah. But unless you talk to people and share your goals and ideas, they can't help you. Okay? But construction worker to ballerina is like kind of a joke, because it's such a change that everybody thinks that they're trying to make this wild change. But remember, you're the same person. And a construction worker to ballerina, that's not going to be the same person. So sometimes we over.
The construction worker is dances at night, you never know.
Good. Probably doesn't have the body for a tutu, but could look good in a tutu.
Yes, he could.
Yeah, maybe can stand it. It could be a her. There's her construction workers. There sure are. That's true. Hey, yeah, all right. Okay.
It's not as crazy as you think.
It's not. Well, I need a different one. Ballerina always reminds me of a friend of mine's daughter when she was 3. someone asked her, what are you going to be when you grow up? And she said, I'm either going to be a ballerina or I'm going to pick dead animals up off the road. Like, somebody has to, right?
If you're going to be a ballerina, it's good to have a plan B.
It is good to have a plan B, yeah. 5 A's, 10 B's, and you even just put people's initials down if you don't want to write it down. It's okay. I'm not going to ask you to share people's names. Okay?
I'm still confused with the A, B, C, D, because A, I would assume would be my closest contact. Somebody
In your personal
personal
world
friendships.
and professional world, both.
Yeah.
Okay? Right?
And so it should be pretty easy to come with A's.
Okay?
B's seem to be a little more difficult because they're more distant, somebody that you wouldn't necessarily run to.
Okay. Think of it this way. Yeah. Okay. Think about your B's this way. Okay. Your B might be somebody who, okay, your A's are somebody you could call and go, hey, this is Glendon. And then you wouldn't even have to say that. They'd know it was you, right? Your B's might be somebody that you're going to want to, before you have a conversation with a B, it's somebody you're going to want to have your story a little more tightened up. Yes. And so your B's are generally someone you could call and say, hey, this is Glendon, or this is Glendon, is it Zinser? Yeah. You know, we haven't talked for like a month or so, but I would love to meet you for coffee. I got some things I want to run by you. They're going to say yes. Okay? When you start to get out to your C's, you may need some help.
C meaning they don't know who you are?
They know who you are, but they're probably going to need, you might need an intermediary to grease the skids a little bit for you. Hey, hey, Jerome, you know Glendon, don't you? You remember him from, oh, yeah, I know him. Would you, I was just talking to him, and I recommended you as a good contact. He's going to give you a call. I hope that's okay. Oh, sure. You're greasing the skids. Okay. People that, so picture yourself, if this helps, picture yourself picking up the phone, okay? What level of comfort would you have calling different people? People that they know who you are, they know, a little bit what you do. You may need to reposition them on what you're trying to do next. But it's a little, and then your C's start to get like, they probably know who you are, but you may need a little bit of help. It's not very scientific. It's just a way to make the whole thing more doable. Because if you put down a list of everybody you know, then you go, oh God, how am I ever going to get to these people? And what you'd probably do is start with the people you're most comfortable with anyway. And so what I'm just asking you to do is put them in columns.
So D, what would D be?
No, ignore the D's. Those would be people that you have a brief conversation with them in the hall. They probably don't know much about you and vice versa. So they're not going to be as invested.
The most helpful.
Could be, then put D's down. Yeah. It's up to you. This is your personal list, okay? Once you start, it'll be easier, huh?
Wouldn't your C's help you get to your D's?
They can, but remember, you don't know your C's super well. But if you meet with a C and all's going very well, and you're having a great conversation, your C is going to recommend some people for you to talk to. So if I talk to Joe, and Joe's one of my A's, okay? Margaret is one of Joe's A's. Then Joe's going to introduce me to Margaret, who's probably a B at that point. But Margaret and I might build a relationship so she becomes one of my A's. But Margaret and I also may never talk again. So it's not all contacts or conversations are going to lead to, something productive. But the more you get out there, the more you have a clear message, and the more you get out there and share it with the right people, the more you're going to just be focused, and you're going to go down the right path. It's going to get you there. Mm-hmm.
Just giving some recommendations and what I personally experienced networking. I try to ask people at the end of the conversation, who else should I be talking to? Who else, what are you reading that I can stay abreast of what the industry is doing or my interest is in, so you can be well informed in talking to others in their language. And then finally, what other groups are you involved in that like-minded people are already meeting? Meetup groups, associations you already talked about, and pretty quickly you're going to find players that are going to give you hey, do you mind introducing me to this person that you know that you might also be able to, or she might be able to help me out. So there's easy ways to ask that, and people are more than willing if you ask them.
If you're showing a sincere interest and you've done your research and your homework, people really respond to that. Versus like, I don't know what I want to do, what do you think I should do? Or I think in this, what do you think? It's like, do you really want to spend some of your networking capital to help somebody who hasn't done the homework themselves? Okay, so next week, we're going to move further along with the stuff I talked about. Remember, give me your email address if you want my slides, and I will send them to you.
If we gave them last week, is that good enough?
Yes. Yeah, you.
Do you want us to email our email? Or
No, you can just write it. Do you have a card? Do you have a piece of paper or something? Yeah. Or you can look me up on LinkedIn. Yeah. My email address is right on there. Connect with me on LinkedIn. My email address is right there. It's on the, I think it's on the bottom right. Okay, and then I want you to start thinking strategically about your network. Start making a list. At least 5 A's, 10 B's. You can go bigger than that. Next week, we're going to talk about how to bring all this together and start acting to get further down the path toward having that wild career happiness that we all want. Questions? It's 9 o'clock. David?
Can you use LinkedIn as part of your sort of looking for A's and B's?
Absolutely. Your first degree contacts, some of those are going to be stronger than others. Yeah, I would. I mean, I'd use whatever you can think of. Yep. You have to set, yeah, to set up a profile. I'll give you my card. You're stubborn, aren't you?
No, I
Just don't want to do it.
So
they asked me.
LinkedIn contacts generally can range anywhere from A to C.
Yeah, I mean, like your first degree contacts, some are going to be stronger than others. It depends on what your LinkedIn philosophy is. Some people, they connect with you and you don't know them that well. And so I would go through if I were you, how many connections do you have? Do you know?
I think it's 100.
Okay. I'd go through those and I'd simply go through your list and say, if I took these 100, how would I, there's going to be some that you're going to say, nah, they're not a good contact. But I would start with them and just say, which ones are my A's? And I think you can download your contacts into Excel. Yeah. LinkedIn is very slick. All right. I'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Okay.